Harry Birdett and the Ferret. Hush. Can you hear the silence? It won't be long before the cockerels start crowing on the distant farms, and the big dogs will bark in deep bass, while the little dogs will respond in higher tenor. Meanwhile, the cows, not to be outdone, will moo the farmer to bring them in from the dew-laden fields. Babies will start to cry in their cots for early attention, which will include milk and a change of nappy. It's far too early for the young teenagers to wake up. Their dreams will be clear and vivid, because today is Full Pelt Saturday. Rugby tries will be scored so easily in these dreams, as I will play against Llanelli Grammar School this very morning. The youth soccer team will play in the afternoon, and I score 2 headers. The evening will include a grand film in the Tivoli Cinema in Pontedelis. The dreams continue in my jam-packed mind. I fall in love with Shirley Temple, Ava Gardner, Hedy Lamarr and Deborah Kerr. And as I get older, the husky, sexy Lauren Bacall and the big-bosomed Jane Russell all became favourites. They will love me in return. But I won't tell a soul. Join me now when the day's events are over and the drama of the evening begins. We're off to the Tivoli Cinema tonight, purring with expectation. As a young boy, you always sit, if you can, in the very front row of the cinema. Older boys tend to sit further back and throw paper and nuts at you when the assistants are not watching. You will not mind, because each year you will move further back until it's your turn to throw things at the little ones. At the very back, there'll be a double seat for courting couples who will kiss and cuddle. But I was too young for that sort of thing. To start the show, there would be Pathé News, followed by Donald Duck, or Mickey Mouse, or Popeye the Sailor Man and the like. We all enjoyed the antics of Laurel and Hardy, Fatty Arbuckle, the Three Stooges, and the great Charlie Chaplin. I still enjoy them when I see the repeats to this very day. There always seem to be cowboys and Indians, with Tom Mix, Hopalong Cassidy, Shane, and the Lone Ranger. And there were often love stories which went on and on and on. At the end of the films, we would ease our way out, walk up the high street, and round the night off in one of the numerous fish and chip shops in the village. We didn't really have a favourite, so we would finish off where our feet took us. The owners would scoop the chips up and put them into greasefoot paper and wrapped around newspapers. They would make the shape of an ice cream cone, and I loved putting on loads of salt, quite acceptable in those days, and then dousing them in vinegar. I used to cut off the bottom of the cone very carefully and drink all the vinegar. On the way there, we would whistle and wink at the girls that passed by. At weekends, we would put on our very best clothes and plaster our hair with Brill cream, just like Dennis Compton, the famous cricketer, did. One particular night, which I will never, ever forget. We arrived at one of the chip shops fairly early. The shop resembled a hut and had only one room for about 8 people to sit. It could have done with a coat of paint, but we really were only interested in the chips. In the queue was Mrs. Williams' corner house, Jack Bach Davis from the Goppa, and 2 giggly girls who looked back at us quite often. We'll have a chat with them afterwards. The real interest, however, was focused on the man right in front. We knew him well, and we were always enthralled with him. In fact, all the village knew him as the Star Poacher. His clothes smelt of bad rubbish. His long coat was falling apart. His face was extremely lined and awfully dirty. He had shifty eyes, and a fag was dangling at the end of his mouth. He constantly looked around the shop, and we wondered why. Harry Birdett was a real legend in the village, and as he turned to look at us, we couldn't believe our eyes. For there, popping up now and again from one of his numerous pockets, were 2 darting eyes which appeared and disappeared at great speed. The pocket was constantly in motion, so we kept looking quite spellbound. It was, in fact, a ferret. It never stayed still, and was looking, peering, peeping, hiding in its non-stop, perpetual motion actions. Just when it got to Harry's turn at the front of the queue, the ferret, now exceptionally curious and excited and nervous, jumped out of Harry's pocket, scampered back and forth along the counter at breakneck speed, and getting more and more agitated and not knowing where to go next. All of a sudden, and without any warning whatsoever, the ferret jumped nose first right into the fat. He was too fast even to squeal, and no one could have possibly stopped him. The world stood still. We were truly horrified and ran out of the shop as fast as our little legs could carry us. No one said a word as we raced breathlessly down the hill and rushed off home. I didn't sleep that night for hours and hours, but there were plenty of dreams. There were no more stories of gold scored that night, or sexy film stars. There were no cowboys or Indians to steal with, and not one glimmer of my favourite film. The night was full of flying ferrets and chips, and nothing would change the scene. I saw Harry around town several times after that, but never dared ask him or even remind him about the ferret. I didn't go to that chip shop ever again, just in case they hadn't changed the fat. This is a really silly sadness, as there is nothing that could have been done. The speed of the ferret's movements beat everybody, and the horror and surprise was absolute. The shop has long since gone, and now Harry too. There are now far fewer fish and chip shops in the village, but there are Chinese, Indian, Thai, and takeaways which serve fish and chips as well. Just a thought. Have you ever noticed a fish and chip shop with a notice outside which says, "No ferrets allowed on these premises"?